Hello, everybody. It's Connor. We are back with the second edition today, the second rendition of Leeds Are Falling Apart Again. Tonight, I am joined by Gabe Stutamore. I am also joined by Oscar Marriott to dissect the absolute SHIT show, which currently is Leeds United. Yeah, I need a little bit of help this evening. If you haven't checked the installment this morning, make sure you do so, where we for around about an hour, spoke about everything last night. Tonight, I'm gonna get a few other opinions. We also have Hull versus Ipswich Town tonight. We're going to go through the different permutations regarding that fixture. We're also going to be getting Oscar's first opinion, the first live online opinion of Oscar's thoughts on last night's horror show against QPR. Gabe obviously did the absolutely fantastic instant live reaction last night. If you haven't checked that out, please do so. It's well worth it. And I'm going to get into a couple of your comments to kick this off. Ricky, a member of the channel, you become a member, everybody, as well, by joining. You can become a Patreon member. We have player ratings out today by clicking the link in the description below as well. One positive from each debrief before your knives are out. Yeah, we'll try to get into that as much as we can. Ricky, Brett says, how can I go and visit the in-laws and pretend to be nice tomorrow after that performance? Yeah, man, it's listen, get yourself away from Leeds United. That's all I can suggest. There's too many people who are really clawed in right now on what's going on with Ipswich and Hull. And to be honest with you, right now, I'll be brutal with you guys. I don't think anything matters regarding that. Ian says, don't think we have bottled it. Really good points total. Just a freak season. Doesn't matter, Ian. Doesn't matter. Listen, we'll get into this tonight, but it doesn't matter. The league is what it is right now. I don't care if we've got 90 points and then don't go up. I don't care. Like, what does that mean? Ian, you're vexing me already, mate. It doesn't mean anything. If we don't go up and we get 90 points, what we're going to be doing, speaking in 1 or 2 years about this to our friends in the pub. Oh, that one season we got 90 points. What did you do with it, Connor? Oh, nothing. We're still in the championship. Who cares? Anyway, Gabe's in the building and Oscar's in the building. I'll come to Oscar first of all, because me and Gabe have been waxing lyrical. Well, not really waxing lyrical, but chatting about Leeds over the
melting,
I should say. Oscar, try not to divulge fully, mate, because we're going to get into the intricacies. But how are you feeling overall, mate?
Not great. Not gonna lie. Not great. Yeah, I mean, I can't listen. Can I just jump straight into that bottling comment?
Please do, Oscar. Please do, because I think I'm going to whack my head against a wall very soon.
It is true. In other seasons, 90 points might have been enough. But the thing is, the top and bottom of it is, we've won 2 games out of 7.
Facts.
We've won 2 games out of 7. Look, everyone knows I love to be positive, and I do love to be positive. And even this afternoon, I've been looking at it thinking, oh, if Ipswich, only take a point from the next 2 games, we'll still be in front. I'll still naturally try and be positive if I can, but we have bottled it. There's no getting away from it. I think the players themselves would admit that. We haven't. It depends what you define bottling as. For me, bottling is quite a strong word, but if there's a sudden drop in performance at a business end of the season, I would define that as bottling or not being able to step up in the big moments, whichever way you want to put it. Bottling might be a bit strong. I don't know. But whatever way you want to put it, it's our fault. It's not anyone else's fault. 90 points might have been enough previous seasons, but we've had the chance before that international break. Well, after the international break, we've been in top of the table, perfect position. It's in our hands. Ipswich and Leicester have been inconsistent as well. We've had such a great opportunity. Even just one of those Coventry, Sunderland, Blackburn, QPR, Watford games goes the other way. This is a different conversation. 5 chances. I think my frustration is, last season was massively frustrating, but that was for different reasons. I think a lot of the things we've got in place are really, really good for this football club. I really do believe that. I think the 49ers will take this club forward, but you can't keep wasting opportunities. Doing. The talent in this team is too much to lose this title race, promotion race as easily as we have done. It's not over yet, but it probably is. If we're being honest, it probably is. We're massively relying on Ipswich to completely mess up. But we've had 5 chances there, 5 games, and that's not even over the whole season. You can go back to games such as Preston away, West Brom away, Stoke away, Rotherham away. So many of these games this season where
Sunderland.
I mean, the thing I'd say is, if it wasn't for our fantastic record against the top 6, which can be a positive thing going into the playoffs, of course, that's what's kind of kept us in this race. Taking them points off Ipswich, taking them points off Leicester. Ipswich and Leicester over the season have been miles better than us in those games against QPR. Those type of games have been miles better than us. They've found a way to win those games over the season. And that's ultimately the difference at this moment in time. And it's just the most annoying thing about it is we're in such a wild league. It's not impossible that Ipswich only take a point out of the next 2 and we're still in front. That's the crazy thing. That is the absolutely crazy thing. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. It's a bit like, I keep going back to 2010, but it's so similar to 2010, honestly, in terms of we've had so many chances to pull away and get it done. We just haven't taken it. And I just don't think we're going to get away with it this time. We got away with it a bit in 2010, if we're being totally honest. We did get it away with it then, but I don't see it. I feel this is like 2019 all over again, really, in terms of the way this season's gone. That last night was probably our Wigan from 2019. It was just... The issue for me is just getting us... there's going to be blows over the season. There's going to be bad moments over a season. It's how you react to it. But when you lose 4-0 in a must-win game, it's tough. It really is tough.
I mean, let's be brutally honest. It's I mean, to go into a game like that, I mean, every permutation, there is no way we can be the most positive, the most negative fans, whatever you can think of, the most extenuating, the extended circumstances and results and hypothetical scenarios we could have found from this. Gabe, nobody in the Leeds United sphere would have said 4-0 and a dominant display by QPR where we are not even in the game. I kept hearing, and listen, I said the same thing on the preview. How are QPR going to set up? I was almost 50-50. Are they going to come at us or are they going to sit back? They came at us. And we always say when we're up against teams and they play football against us, well, we've got more of a chance. Well, they played football against us and they completely dominated us. It was a quite staggering performance by Leeds United to put in that style of performance in the most important game. And do you know what it insinuates to me, Gabe? It insinuates that the badge maybe is a little bit too heavy. That's what I'm thinking right now.
There's a lot I can say about that, and I will. Let me just piggyback off of something good that Oscar said here. When we talk about previous seasons, I don't like to reference our club. So, we haven't won at this place and that, I don't believe in that stuff, especially when you have different players. And here's what I will say. I don't want to hear anything more about our points total this season. Last season, Sheffield had 91, Burnley had over 100. Do you know what the big difference between this season and last season is? The distance between 4th place and 10th was less than 10 points last season. This season, it's over 20. The richer have gotten richer, and the only exception to that rule in this league right now is Ipswich. They are the story of the season, and there is absolutely no doubt about it. They're the story of the season. They have not only overachieved, but they may just do it, and they'll deserve it. They deserve everything they get this season. The point I'm making here is this league has been terrible this season.
Yeah.
Outside of the top 4, 5, 6 teams, it's been woeful. And when you look at what we've done, you could talk about the QPR match, and I agree with everything you just said, Connor. To put that kind of performance in a game with that kind of gravity is unforgivable. But it's not just this game, isn't it? And I'm sure we're going to talk about how the form has dipped over the last number of weeks. But here's what stands out the most for me. Blackburn stink. Sunderland aren't very good. Middlesbrough, that match was incredibly chaotic. I obviously will take the result, but we didn't play well. And then when you go away to a QPR team that also stinks, let's be clear about that. They're not a good team. We can. Everyone's talking about Elias Chair like he's a world-class player. He's got like 5 goals and 4 or 5 assists. He's not a world beating. Like, he's a good player at this level. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to disrespect him or QPR, but and it's one I don't mind getting beaten. Like, I do. Obviously, I do mind getting beaten, but like, I understand that you can't win every match you play, and that this is a game of that gets played out on a pitch and not on paper. But to go away in arguably the bellwether match of the entire season, and to lose 4-0 to be. And by the way, they didn't get us on counterattacks. They didn't just hang in the box and wait for us to kind of futilely not be able to break down a low block. They played with us. They did. They were better than us for most of the match. It's unforgivable, top to bottom, every single area of the pitch, starting from the attackers. The attackers weren't good. Yo, Pirro, I know for weeks I've been in agreement with everybody, but it's embarrassing the level of anonymity that footballer can present in a match. The midfield was poor, and they have been poor for a number of weeks. And the thing is, I do blame the players. Of course, I blame the players. But when you're looking at Daniel Farke, he's been playing a system designed around ball retention. And that's part of how you defend, is you keep the ball. Now, I know that many of our fans wanted to see more in the attacking graph from those midfielders, but then he went in and mixed up the midfield pairing. And so what we've conceded, one of the things that made us hard to play all year, was a control of possession all match. We don't have that anymore. The defenders are starting to break apart, and even worse is the play of Illan Meslier. I mean, so his save percentage dropped 8 points over the last three weeks. He's conceded 7 goals on an XG of less than 2. It's absurd. That's woefully bad. His goals prevented is underwater by almost 2. And so if people aren't into data and analytics, this is what that means. Goals prevented is by the keeper's actions, you prevented what should be a goal. When you're in a negative number on that, it means that what should be a relatively easy save for an even average keeper, you didn't make. And it goes in the back of the net. If you have a negative number there, it's so yeah, I don't, for me, I know we're going to talk about all this, so I don't want to monopolize this, but it's shocking from Farke. I think before I pass over to one of you two, here's what sticks out the most to me about what Farke said. I'm not really big into pressers. That's a media obligation, and a manager is an outward-facing position as well as an inward-facing position. So part of it is PR, and they're just going to say what they want to say. But Daniel Farke said that we lost some duels in the middle of the park, and that's why we went down 2-0. So what he's implying there is, it doesn't fall on me. My tactical plan was fine. Our players just didn't execute, which is massively worrying. Massively worrying that we lost a match 4-0 against one of the worst teams in this league after the performances we've just put in. And Daniel Farke, the first thing he basically implies is, you know what? It's not the tactics. It's not, we just didn't want it enough. We didn't play hard enough in the center of the midfield. Garbage. Absolute garbage. Yeah, we'll talk about individual player performances, I'm sure, in a minute. But I just want to highlight how weak and brittle of an excuse that is. He's essentially trying to get ahead of the story and put it on the players, which is, I agree, but also it's pathetic from a manager.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that a lot of this, I'd say 90% of it is down to Daniel Farke. He is in the position to change personnel. I mentioned it I mentioned it on the stream this morning. He's moaning and whinging. Oscar, I'll come to you for this, but he's moaning and whinging about scheduling. We all know the scheduling is not good. I feel more for fans there, but yeah, I completely understand what he's saying there in terms of what Sky have done. Sky will always do this when Leeds are in the second tier of English football because we are the biggest team in the second tier of English football. We've got to get used to that fact. It's going to happen. But that doesn't take away the load. He keeps mentioning load. He's bang on. However, what I don't understand with this manager, Oscar, is the fact that he's constantly complaining about scheduling. In every interview I see, he's talking about scheduling. What I don't quite understand is he's got the options to rotate, Oscar. He has a lot of players in there. I would say 5 players who I would be okay with in this starting 11, or and that's a real luxury when you're looking at caliber and quality. However, even if these players don't start, he has the ability to bring these players on at a really, really decent time. And I tell you what, Oscar, a certain Argentinian, when things were going against the grain 4 or 5 years ago, the best players would be dragged off after 25, 30 minutes. And when we all as a fan base can see this going wrong, after I honestly would say 15 minutes, you could see the passing was off. You could see the intensity was off. We were flat. QPR were right now faces. We're pressing as high. We were constantly going back to Elan Melier with that handbrake option that we've seen a lot of times this season. Safety on. Go back to Elan when things get tough in front of you. We could all see it was going wrong. Why does this manager not utilize those rotation options he has in his arsenal, on his bench, whilst also complaining about the squad fatigue and tiredness? I don't understand it, mate. And I think he has woefully underrated certain substitutes this season. And we have to call him out on this because last night, once again, he let it go, he let it go, he let it go, and he let it go when we all could see that there were problems up front. And I do not understand why this isn't developing. And it makes me a little bit more worried when I said to you lads in the group this morning, I see on Twitter continuously that this manager does not have a plan B. And I'm a little bit worried now that this stubbornness is just going to drive us into a dark hole.
Well, I mean, I'm not exactly convinced with the plan A at the minute. I mean, listen, I think over the whole season, I think one of the constants of the debrief all season, I think one of the biggest things you can probably, if you watch back all our debriefs, if you've got the time, you'll see a lot of the time we've spoken about rotation. Even when we were winning games, that has been something we've spoken about all season. That's been my worry all season. Not so much tactically. Yes, tactically there's been massive issues last couple of weeks. There's no doubt about that. Individually, individuals haven't been performing or making mistakes. It's a cocktail of, I won't say what I was going to say. It's a cocktail of, but I'm sure Connor wants to keep this video monetized.
Oscar, you're such a nice guy that I'm not sure it would have gotten us demonetized.
I was going to say anyway.
Just say shy. Yeah, whatever.
Okay. Cocktail of shitness then. We'll go with that. It's an absolute cocktail of that because it's just the worst things possible at this stage of the season have all coming together. But one thing that has been a constant all season, probably going back to the Stoke game in October, has been the rotation. We've either not rotated enough or when Daniel has tried to rotate, it's not worked. The performance has dropped. You know, in terms of we went from when that Stoke game happened, we won 3-2 at Norwich. Unbelievable second half to come back from 2-0 down. Either side of the Stoke game, and then we beat Huddersfield 4-1. The game we tried to rotate, we lost 1-0 at a terrible at the time Stoke. Sunderland away back in December. Every time we tried to rotate, it hasn't worked for us. Whether that's down to the players that have come in need a run of games or a run of minutes before they come into the team, I don't know. But whatever it is, it's not worked. It's been a constant all season. And now we've come into a period of the season where we've played, is it 8 games in 4 weeks? It is something like that anyway. Maybe 7 games in 4 weeks. It's really starting to hurt us a little bit. Injuries in key areas as well, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse at all.
We can't have that. We can't have that.
No, I'm not using that as an excuse at all. I'm just saying it's further adds to the pressure to rotate, and we've not been good at it all season, and that's not good enough. In a 46-game season, you've got to be better at rotating things. And it's not just on Farco, it's down to the players coming in. You know, Joel Perreault last night, we know what he can do at this level. You know, he scored 22 and 24 goals for an average Swansea team. Why? It's how difficult it looks for Perreault at this moment in time, which concerns me. You know, it's how he's not a striker, I don't think, and I don't think he's a number 10. I think he's someone who has to play in a front 2. We don't play a front 2 system. I think that's been something I've kind of said since kind of January. I think the talent
I can't
there.
tell you how many times we've heard this, and you're right. You're not wrong. I'm
Yeah,
just saying. It's like, but why do we even have to have the same conversation over and over? Just because we keep seeing the same stuff over and over and over again. So there's nothing I would love more than us to be able to move on. But and I'm not digging you out for saying it, Oscar. I'm pointing out the fact that we keep seeing the same stuff over and over and over, and that's why we have to talk about it, which is a huge indictment of the team and of the manager.
I think what I'd say is you've got this Leeds team pre-March and you've got this Leeds team post-March. That Leeds team pre-March was playing some of the most enjoyable football I've seen from a Leeds team since Bielsa. I'm not going to suddenly change the narrative on that. That is the case. But since post-March, whether it's teams working us out, whether it's us trying to rotate, I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I think certainly teams are playing differently against us. I think ever since that Huddersfield game when we all expected Huddersfield to just sit off for 90 minutes and they did try and press, and when they had to sit off, they sat off really well. I think since that Huddersfield game, I don't think we're being free-flowing. I think it's been very few games where we've looked fully at it, and that's a massive concern. Individually, too many players have dropped off. the last 2 months. And I don't think that can be a coincidence either. I think there's more to it than just. I don't think these players have become bad players overnight. Jorginho Rutter has not turned into one of the most entertaining players this league's ever seen, to someone who can't get anything right at this moment in time, aside from winning the penalty against Borough. I'm not digging out Jorginho Rutter there, by the way. I think there's a lot more to it. Rutter is clearly, not fully right in terms of fitness. In terms of, there's no doubt about it. He's probably being rushed back a little bit because of that operation, obviously in the March international break. You can see why we've done that. He's such an important player to us. But is that not damning on our rotation? The fact that Jorginho Rutter, after a fairly big operation, we still need him to play pretty much every single minute of every single game. And when he doesn't play every single minute of every single game, we don't look great, do we? I've seen someone mention, is it burnout? Possibly, but I think it's more to it than that. I think
why are the other teams burnt out? Why are we 17th in the form table? It's not like these other teams haven't played.
If anyone can tell me of a performance since Huddersfield where we've looked like a team that's pushing for the top 2, then I'd be surprised. I don't think there's been one.
Great point.
Maybe Millwall at home, where we were quite professional in that game. But again, one game in about the space of 12, 13, 14 games. And my frustration is this is an incredibly talented side. Gnonto, Rutter, Somerville should be a cheat code at this level. And it was a cheat code. Up to March, it was a cheat code at this level. I can't understand why all of a sudden it's not anymore. Oscar,
can I disagree with you a little bit here on something?
Yeah.
And I want to be careful how I frame this, because things tend to be very binary in this space. Either you're saying someone's the best or you're saying they're the worst. And I'm not going to posit that these players aren't really good at this level. What I would say is this. I'm going to take Chris Somerville out because I think his talent and abilities pretty much unquestioned, right? I don't necessarily always share the enthusiasm of how much better than everybody in the championship, but I'm not interested in having like a semantics conversation. What I would say is that when I look at Jorginho Rutter's goal contributions, they have come by and large against very poor teams in this division, almost overwhelmingly. And most of them came before he picked up his injury. I think there's something to what you're saying here. And people are saying this in the chat as well with young players. I do think that we have overrated some of these players a little bit. I think that we think as a fan base that these players, the game should win themselves, and that you simply have to keep these guys in tip-top shape and it should be fine. I think that in the case of maybe not Somerville, but I do think it would be good for Somerville to have the threat of being benched over him once in a while, because I think sometimes he comes in and out of games in terms of motivation. I think with Rutter and with Gnonto, I mean, I knew yesterday by the 15th minute that Gnonto was going to be off at all match. You could see it. You could see it in the body language. He has these young player moments where he whinges and cries and moans and picks up stupid fouls. I just don't. The only thing, I guess I'm not even really contesting your larger point. I just don't think that these players, some of them, are as good as they think they are.
But Gabe, the championship is also absolutely horrendous. And I
agree. But you still have to show up and play. And I think this comes down to the manager to fail to motivate these players. I think, to keep their attitudes right.
And I completely agree with you. But what I would say, and Gabe, I know that's a larger point which you brought up, and you have been consistent with it for a while now. What I would say, though, is we've also said for literally 90% of this season that this division this season isn't that great, barring the top 4. And what I would also say is I do think I think the young players, they're obviously young players, they're raw, but I still think their ceiling is way higher than 98% of this division. So I think what Oscar's getting at is, form-wise, recently they've not been good enough. But when you're looking at the quality of those players and us keeping hold of those players at the start of the season, and invariably those probably being Premier League, if not lower league, Premier League players, they should be blowing away teams at this level. And post-international break, I don't know what's going on. But what I would say, Gabe, is I think you've made a really sterling point there when it comes to Somerville and the rotation. Who have you got on the bench? You've got, if Somerville's not having a great game, you've got a lad who started 4 Premier League games at the start of the season, and when he's played for Leeds has been pretty decent in Jadon Anthony. That's my larger point. I know we can look at the players.
I agree. We can look getting into the syntax of cheat code where you just enter it in and you win. I think that's that's
What I'd
what
say,
what
I
I'm
wouldn't
taking
say the
issue with,
teams
because I
are
just
cheat
don't think they're
codes.
that good.
No, I said those three behind. I absolutely, to be fair, I won't budge on that. I think Nonto, Rutter, Somerville. If you compare that to what teams at this level are operating with in comparison, I think it's far better. To be honest, that particular area.
Chris Willock, Anderson, and Share. Yeah, they're a level up, aren't they?
Yeah, and listen, that's a very good front three behind. I was super impressed by them last night.
Yeah.
I thought Chair was. I know what Gabe's saying in terms of he's not the elite of elite tens at this level, but he's someone who could easily play for a top
He's
six
not as
side.
good as we made him look. I think that's the point I'm making, is that he's a solid player. Look, I'm not trying to condescend QPR. It's just that we can't have it both ways, right? We can't talk about how good these players are, and then week after week after week they show us pedestrian and or just poor form, because good players aren't just good a couple weeks out of a month. I mean, they're good all the time, and that doesn't mean they're never going to have a poor match. And I've been talking about youth all season, but what I would say is that I've seen flashes from some of these players, and I have no doubt that the ability is there. But the difference between a top footballer and an average footballer, or footballers that just it's good some of the time, is consistency, and that isn't necessarily their ceiling.
But Gabe, there's a larger point here as well. Of we're talking about Elias Share, and then we're talking about the individuals. This is QPR's best player. This is and what I'm not understanding is the first goal, which was utter embarrassment. Like, I'm watching that, and I'm seeing him
worst goal conceded all season. By
Oscar bang on, and that's including some of the shit show sort of goals we conceded yesterday in the game. That goal, when he's literally, the ball's been chipped through to, and he's looking in front, he's looking back. Oh, I've got 10 yards of space either side. The midfield, and they're all pointing at each other. The cohesion in the team, the synergy, the partnerships, all off.
If you stop that off on the actual goal, if you actually pause it, and if you watch the goal, if you can watch back the goal, it brings me so many horrors. 3 players are pointing at each other. 3 players. If you freeze frame it, 3 players are pointing. I don't like to see things like that at all. That to me is suggesting, right, he doesn't know where he should be. Who's doing what?
Who's doing
what? Or no one's taking responsibility.
Rodon thinks Gruev should be ahead of him, or to the left of him, etc., etc. Byram thinks he should be further across. I think Firpo on the other side thinks Gruev should be on his side. That's what concerns me. And that's been something all season. We've not had that issue at all.
Yeah,
at all. Right. Since Rodon came into the team, Ampadu came into the team, etc., etc. Firpo to an extent, we haven't had an issue defensively. It's the fact we conceded 7 goals in 2 games. That was unthinkable. It's unthinkable. There was a time this season when we conceded 1 goal in about 10 games. It's unthinkable.
I'll tell you what,
Oscar, 7 in 2 games.
Oscar as well, since that Welsh performance when they lost out. These Welsh lads have been shadows.
How mentally weak do you have to be, though?
I'm telling you, Gabe.
It had something else, though.
Gabe, it's every single one of them. It's every single one.
Ampadu's got to go back into midfield for me. Yeah, that's something I'm absolutely no negotiating about for me. Ampadu's got to go in midfield. Absolutely no doubt about it. People will talk about Cooper's performances. People will talk about, does Farker trust Creswell? I don't care. One of those has got to play to allow Ampadu to go into midfield.
There's a complete imbalance. He doesn't. You can tell he's not favoured with Kamara and Gruev anymore, which is fair enough. They were putting in poor performances with that as a double pivot. And Gruev and Archie, I have no idea what they're doing.
It doesn't work.
But as a midfield balance.
They're not even playing a double. They're playing a 4-1-4-1 now.
Yeah. It's turned into Bielsa with Phillips. Like it's like, but Gruev doesn't realize.
Except for it's Gruev.
Phillips doesn't. Gruev doesn't realize he's in that Phillips role because he's not supposed to be in that role. Archie is so far ahead of that midfield line. There is no understanding of that. There need to be a double pivot, but it's just there's no foundation there. There's no solidity whatsoever.
But that can work if you have Ampadu holding.
Ampadu there, definitely.
In a possession-based system, your most important player is your 6, both in and out of possession. In any great possession-based side, you go back to the 6s. You will not see honestly, go back in history, Pirlo, Busquets, Rodri, whoever, even go back into this league, in terms of the different possession-based sides. It's the number 6 that sets the tempo. It's the number 6 that keeps the team as a unit compact out of possession. It's a number 6 that sets how the team plays. It's as simple as that. Now, people will jump at me and say, Ampadu went to centre-back and we went on this mega run.
There's more correlation and causation argument there
as well. I think the teams we were playing at that point played to our strengths. I think our system and our general performances individually and as a team were at their peak at that point when that decision was made. And it wasn't that game in terms of when Ampadu went to centre-back that started the run. Strauch was playing before that run started and Ampadu was in midfield. We were just so good at being able to swap players in and out.
Ampadu suffers for being so good at it in utility. So, like, I think, again, he's done a really good job in the position. But to your point, he's he's one of the best midfielders in the championship. He's a really good center half in this division. But I think here's the issue, though. And I'll just put my hand up. Everybody who follows the channel, I don't rate Charlie Cresswell. I just don't think he's very good. So what we're doing is not working. I don't see Farka making that drastic. On one hand, if you play Cresswell, what probably happens is Liam Cooper comes in the team if he's fit, right? Because if you play Charlie Cresswell, you're essentially doing what he did with Joffe the other day, who another player I don't really rate, but the way he threw him on haphazardly to sort of save the game is not fair to the player, right? And imagine being Charlie Cresswell coming in. You're already slow. You haven't had any game time all season. You were middling for a bad Millwall team last season. I don't know that's going to solve anything.
That's unfair.
It's not unfair.
He made a bad start to the season for Millwall.
And then he was really good. For me, that averages out as middling. They weren't a great defensive side, Oscar, and he was okay. He was good, but the standard that Ampadu has been playing at center half has been up until the last couple of weeks, and I wouldn't even blame the center halves for this. Has been much better than any of the heights that Cresswell hit. That's my point. So last night, the way I put it, listen, I'm not saying Charlie Cresswell is Paolo Maldini and we're going to be all our problems going to get solved by Charlie Cresswell going to centre back. I'm not saying that at all. But what I do believe is that Rodon, Cresswell, Ampadu, Gray or Ampadu, Gruev, whoever you want to play alongside Ampadu, is a better foundation than what we've got now. I am absolutely. I don't know that's the truth with the keeper we have, and you have a center half that hasn't played all season, coming in one of the biggest matches or going into playoffs. I think that sets us up to fail. I think that there are a lot of areas of the pitch that we have to adjust. Now, look, it's no point arguing about it now because it's already happened. But I wanted us to buy another center half. If you're not going to play Charlie Cresswell and rotate him, then let him leave and buy someone else or get someone else in on loan. Now we're in a situation where we couldn't make the loan work. He sent a player back early that we brought in at a different defensive position, and now we have what we have. So you either play somebody completely cold, who, to be honest, was less than convincing even in preseason matches with this team, or you keep going with what you have. He's put himself into a corner, is what I'm saying, because he's sort of, you either rethink the whole thing, and mixing up a center half partnership with somebody that's not played all season is rethinking the whole thing, and hope that goes well. Hope that everybody adjusts to it with the keeper at the back that no one's sure about. I think that's another thing that's caused a dip in defensive form, is when your keeper's playing that poorly, you start stretching out of position. You start second guessing your challenging timing. Or maybe you have to get on this earlier because if they manage to crack a shot on goal, or maybe you have to sag. It messes up the way you play as a center half if your keeper's playing poorly. It feels like a recipe for disaster for me. But then again, I don't see any alternatives. I do agree that we've improved in the midfield, and that's where Ethan Ampadu should play. But Pascal Strauch's out for the season. It's Charlie Cresswell or Liam Cooper.
You are very risky. You are very risky.
No, I agree. It's risky, but my fundamental thing is
very
risky. Season is.
But then again, we just lost 4-0 to QPR. So maybe to your point, it can't get much worse, can it?
We're talking about bottling and that lot. I'm not saying if you agree or disagree on that, but if we're talking about has this team mentally, collapsed into itself, whatever way you want to put it, is that not the case where you say, why don't we try youth at this stage of the season? Fearlessness. Joseph, Cresswell, and throw them into the team and see what happens. Well, what is the alternative at this moment in time?
Well, with Joseph, I'm all in for. I just, from what I've seen,
you weren't though. You weren't.
Joseph came on last night.
But what did I say as criteria to bring me around on Joseph?
But you did say for large parts it was risky. It was too risky.
Yeah, I did. But what was my criteria? My criteria was he plays in the cup matches, and we see how he does in his limited appearances. He has taken his opportunities, busted down the door. Cresswell hasn't had any time whatsoever with this unit. Those are two very different things. You have one kid who comes on and plays really, really well and earns more playing time. You have another kid, in the limited time I've seen of him, I haven't been impressed. I don't rate him. So of course I'm not going to go with him.
How many professional minutes? How many professional minutes has Archie Gray played before this season?
I don't know.
How was Jorginho Rutter playing?
He made the most of the limited opportunities he had.
But that's the point I'm saying. Just because they're young players doesn't mean they can't come in and give performances. Matteo Joseph,
but you're answering my point with a point, or you're answering a point I'm not making. I've said that Matteo Joseph, with the opportunities he's gotten, has deserved the time to play. And I have for weeks now been 100% in agreement that I would start him if you don't start Bamford. Plain and simple. But the fact that you started Joel Peru made me want to rip my beard out. I'm 100% in agreement with you guys on that. What I'm saying is I don't have any evidence whatsoever that Charlie Cresswell is even very good. What I have seen of him, I haven't rated. I haven't liked. I saw him for Millwall, saw him play a little bit for us in preseason. I don't like the way he plays center half, especially the way Fark wants them to play. So, I would almost rather, if we have to make the change, then go with Liam Cooper. We know what happens, right? We know it's not good, but if we think we're going to improve that much in the midfield, if we have to make that change to bring Ampadu in, fine. I would bring in Liam Cooper. I would not go with a kid who hasn't played all season and who I don't rate to come in at a time where we're leaking goals for fun and the keeper's playing like one of the worst in the league. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Wouldn't you? I think there's two beneficiaries if that was to happen. A, the fact that we'd look much better on set pieces. I think he scored 5 or 6 from set pieces for Millwall. If we could actually get the delivery into the box, which is
that's the problem. It's not finishing; it's the delivery.
But if we're able to, I mean, you're right. The delivery is absolutely abhorrent. But if they're able to get the delivery in and consistent takers, then at least these fine margins which get you up, balling off the arse, whatever it can be. And not only that, but then at least it's what we were saying at the start, at least with Cresswell in there. I know you can get this with Cooper as well, but at least with Cresswell in there, you get to shift Ampadu in the midfield, at least. So you've got two things there which incrementally might make Leeds a little bit better.
My point is I don't want either of those center halves in. I don't want Liam Cooper playing, and I don't want Charlie Cresswell playing. And I think that I understand what you guys are saying, and I don't think it's illogical or brain dead. But what I'm saying is I think sorry, that threw me. I don't think that solves our problem, to be honest. I don't.
Oscar, go on, because he's been trying to get in for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, go on.
No, listen, I don't. A couple of people have said Cresswell won't get in anyway. I don't think he will get in. But I think if it is Cooper instead, at least you got a bit of experience there as well at this point in the season. I don't think we should underestimate this is a young team. And I just want to make a point about in terms of earlier on a little bit, because I'm going to throw that into this as well. In terms of where Gabe was suggesting a little bit that the team maybe we've overrated in certain periods. I don't think it's quite as linear as that. I just think when you've got such a young team, there is going to be some drop off, in terms of from game to game. In terms of we have to remember at the start of the season, and this is actually agreeing with Gabe's point, Archie Gray had never played a professional minute. Patrick Bamford, I don't think any of the fan base would have considered our best number 9 at that point in the season. Jorginho Rutter hadn't scored or assisted in a Leeds United shirt. Dan James was not even at the club this time last year. So many different things. You go through all the players, Junior Firpo, etc., etc. And yes, I know we've dropped down a level, but eventually, when it's such a young team, inexperienced at this level, you're going to have periods like this. Maybe not quite as bad as this. I think there's more to it than just that. But as I said, it's a cocktail of different things coming together. In terms of Cresswell, look at the Lyndon Dykes yesterday and Lati Laugh on Monday. This isn't anything against Ethan Ampadu at all, but they targeted Ampadu, not in terms of talent. Physically, they targeted Ampadu. I just look at who we could play in the playoff semi-finals. It's probably going to be Norwich or West Brom. Maybe
Oscar, to add to your point, Ellis Sims did the exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's been other games. I'm just trying to think as well, other games this season where I'm not saying teams are just playing like Stoke City against us under Tony Pulis, going long and just trying to bully Ethan Ampadu. I'm not saying that at all, but it just gives teams different ways of getting higher up the pitch in terms of being able to go long into Lyndon Dykes and keep the ball high up the pitch. Start the season or when initially we went with Rodon Ampadu to, kind of, mask the Pascal injury, teams hadn't really worked that out, in terms of we were able to, find ways to not get Ethan Ampadu into those situations. Because I think that's always been my question mark with Ethan Ampadu at centre-back. Nothing to do with talent. It's just physically, in terms of the way we play, we try and press high, we try and keep the ball and that lot. Teams will go long against us. But I think now teams are finding ways to get into that space in between Ampadu and Firpo and target it physically. I think you're finding that. Balls in the challenge for Firpo. If you put Creswell in or Cooper in, for me, it'd be Creswell because I think that set piece threat. I think Creswell is the better centre back for me. He's certainly the higher potential. And I think you're seeing.
Oh, Gabe.
No, I'm being serious.
Liam Cooper.
I'm not talking about Liam Cooper. I'm talking about why do we rate Charlie Creswell? Like, this is what I don't understand.
He's probably had a better succession of games at Millwall when they're all talking to him about potentially being the player of the season for that mid, sort of like 12 games he had where he was very, very good. When's the last time Liam Cooper put 2 games together? Where
I'm sorry. I'm not talking about Liam Cooper. I'm talking about Cresswell over Ampadu at center half because I know you mentioned him being targeted, and I think I agree.
I don't think Cresswell's better than Ampadu at centre back. I just think in terms of the different, there's not linear like that in terms of one's better than the other. I just think in terms of to get Ampadu into midfield, which is the absolute priority, because I don't think any of our midfielders can play the role Ampadu can play. What Farkas seems to want to go with this 4-1-4-1 system to try and get Archie pushed up and get extra players in between the lines. It seems to be what he wants to want to do. I'm not saying he's going to do it against Hampton, but last 2 games especially, we've seen Archie very high up the pitch as like a left-sided 8 or a left-sided 10. To get that, you need Ampadu in there in the 6 role for me. I think that's an absolute non-negotiable.
Graves can't. He can't.
He's not holding midfield.
He's not. There's no way. There's no way. If that is what he's doing, Oscar, that riles me up more than anything.
Graves is a very talented player, I think, but he's not a physical.
He's all right. He's all right.
He's a talented player. Then whatever way you want to put it, I don't think he's a bad player. Is what I'm not saying.
You're right. He's not a bad player, but he's.
It's like saying. It's like putting. I don't know. Trying to think of an example now. It's like dropping Kevin De Bruyne into the holding midfield role. You're going to mask all his talents. No, I'm not comparing. What I'm saying is,
give him time to explain because I'm going to hold.
Yeah.
What?
If I just say what I'm trying to say before you jump on me.
Yeah, go ahead.
You put Kevin De Bruyne in the number 6 role, you're taking away all his best talents. That's the point I'm making. It doesn't matter who you play in the 6 role. If they're not suited to that role, they're not going to play well. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying Gruev is anything like Kevin De Bruyne. I'm just saying it doesn't matter how good the player is. If you drop him in a position where they're not suited to playing, they're not going to play well.
Where should he be playing?
But he's not. He's also not. He's also like. I see him as, and someone's quite rightly put it in the comment section below. Like he's an all right player. He's an all right player, but he's a bit of an Adam Forshaw. Like I don't see when Gruev plays, and I've always said this. You guys have known I've always said this on the debrief. I've always said this in my video. He's okay. Like he's a safety on player. He covers ground quite well. His duels are nothing like where I'm looking at it and go, wow, a couple of decent recovery tackles in there. Yeah, okay. But he's not someone who I'm looking at and thinking he's absolutely integral. Like, as a number 6.
No, I agree.
But as a number 6, Oscar, like, and you've mentioned it as well with Ampadu, and I agree with you. I think Ampadu's got to go back in there. But let's not jazz Gruev up as if he's something, in this division that teams would be absolutely honoured to get. I mean,
I'd take Gruev out. It's the point I'd make. I think fundamentally, okay. Right, the 2 most physical, most questions asked of you physically and in terms of running power, running intensity and covering distance in this role at this moment in time, in this whole team at this moment in time, is the 6 role and the 9 role. Last night, we had Eli Gruev playing in one of them and Joel Perreault playing in the other one. Our 2 most immobile players. I'm not digging them out. It is just factually, in terms of in that 11, they're probably our 2 most immobile players who aren't going to cover a lot of distance. Daniel Farkas said that before about Joel Perreault, that he wouldn't play him at number 9. All of a sudden, Joel Perreault's playing at number 9.
Yeah, and he said he's a like-for-like replacement with Patrick Bamford is what he said. He's like, these press conferences mean nothing. I'm picking up what you're laying down, Oscar. Here's what I think Farkas is going to do. If he makes any change whatsoever, He'll play Mateo Joseph, which he should. That's a change I would make. He'll put Archie Gray back at right back, and he'll play Glenn Kamara in with Gruev. And what I think that could is at least we'll have more control of the ball, because we haven't even had that. Now, we still lack our incisiveness and our ability to finish. That's a problem that maybe you hope the Mateo Joseph inclusion can solve. I think this is where I sit about Ampadu. There's no doubt our midfield play would improve with Ethan Ampadu in at the 6. There's no doubt. I would never argue against that point. My concern is, and this is Jess, I can't now change my story and pretend that I rate Charlie Cresswell. I don't rate Liam Cooper either. I think both of them are pretty bad options for this team going into the playoffs. So it's either I sacrifice the defense and play who I think is a below average footballer next to a already limited center half who plays really well at this level, but he's limited in some ways. I think we all know that in terms of Joe Rodon's play. And it seems like he's pretty banged up, right? His performances have fallen off a little bit. So you give him a new center half partner, either of them. And again, this is just my estimation. I just can't lie about how I rate players for an easy conversation who I don't think are very good. And I've seen what the Gruev Kamara combination can do when they play well. I have not seen the combination of that's what Oscar thinks of my point. I've not seen the combination of Cresswell.
You saw the Ipswich score.
Oh boy, of Cresswell, and I just think that we're taking one problem area that may be solvable enough for us to get through a playoff, and I think introducing an element that could cause all of it to just catch fire, and not in a good way, just combust. I think that and I would listen again. I said this the other day. I hope I'm wrong on this, and I will be the first one to say, "Hey guys, I was wrong, and I'm happy about it." If Cresswell comes in and plays really well, I don't see it happening, and I don't see it happening with Cooper either. So I would keep Ampadu where he is. It's not ideal, it's not good, but we can't go back and fix the way we bought. I just don't see it happening. So I think what's probably going to happen is Farke is just going to go with probably what he's gone with. That's what I think is going to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's how it's going to go. I would be looking at chat. Do you know what, Gabe? Right now, it's not working, and invariably, there are players that. Do you know what, Gabe? Quite simply, they don't deserve after that performance to retain the shirt. And there's quality off the bench that can replace certain personnel, in my opinion, in that team. And guys, I can see there's people saying up the tractor boys. We are not a Leeds United fan channel who believe we're going up. That it was done, guys. It was done last night. Like it's absolutely done. Like there's not. Look, I understand why. The Ipswich fans in it. Yeah, shout out to you guys. You know, you deserve to be in the automatics. We're not even. Right now, this debrief is about the playoffs. We're not talking. We're looking at what the best scenario is here for the playoffs. Look, Ipswich will go up automatic. If you don't watch this fan channel, you need to start doing it a little bit more, because this isn't a ha at this channel here. We know Ipswich are going to go up automatic. I'm not even bothered by Ipswich scoring right now, because it's just so obvious that they're going to, head in those automatics, and shout out to them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my issue at this moment in time is, can we even beat Southampton? Can we even do our own job? That's what I'm more bothered about. I'm not even looking at Ipswich. Can we get some kind of confidence into the whole place before the playoffs? I think that's the most important thing. If we can put a comprehensive performance behind us against Southampton, all of a sudden the picture looks slightly different. My point with Gruev and Perot is, I don't think we should dig out these players as much as maybe what has been done, because I think they've just been put in positions where they can't perform. They're not suited to the positions they're playing. We know that. No one would have said Gruev should be playing number 6 in a game where it's going to be transitional. You've got Elias Chair popping into the pockets, Chris Willock popping into the pockets. At times, it was 3 versus 1 in the middle against Gruev. Lucas Anderson was doing the same. For me, that's more. You're saying
you play Gruev in a 4-2-3-1 with a midfield partner that's slightly withdrawn.
Yeah, I think that is the position he should play. I also don't think he should be playing ahead of Ampadu in a 4-1-4-1. I think for me, Perot should play in a front 2, or come on late on into games where it's a bit chaotic and we can just use his ball striking and ability to finish chances late on. Gruev, I think either play him in the midfield 2 alongside quite a physical number 6. That can work. I think it has worked at times this season. For me, the point I made before, Gruev's playing in one of the most physical positions in this team. Perot's playing in the other one. That can't work. We saw it. I think I counted it on 25 minutes. I think I put a message into another group chat I'm in. We need to make some subs after 25 minutes.
What do you think
that
is actually going to happen, Oscar? Like, what do you think is going to? How do you think we're going to line up?
Well, if we don't get athletes into this team in these positions where we need athleticism, we're going to really struggle. For me, I can't lie about that. Whether it's Bamford, whether it's Joseph, we need a physical number 9 who can run the channels, get on the end of things and lead the press and hold the ball up. We need.
But who do you think he's going to play? Do you think he's going to make changes, or do you think he's going to roll?
I think if Bamford's fit, Bamford will definitely play. I think that's definitely the case. And I think.
Do you think he goes with Byram again?
That's if Connor Roberts is fit, I think Connor Roberts goes into the team, or actually Gray goes into the team. I do feel changes will come. I think probably be Kamara instead of Ampadu in midfield. I can't listen. I've said this all about Ampadu going into midfield. I can't see it happening, but I do think we need our most technical midfielder in midfield for me, especially when we're struggling. I think it's a bit different when you're winning games. You're finding ways to win with Ampadu at centre back. I think when you're on a bad run, I think that's the time where you've got to try and go back to the basics a little bit. And I think that time has come to go back to the basics for this team. But unless we get this team, as much as we're possession-based, we need athleticism. We've always been at our best this season when we've had athleticism in the team. When Bamford's gone into the 9, we've looked better as a structure. When we've had fullbacks who can get up and down the pitch, we've looked best as a structure. We haven't looked best as a structure when we've had Perot in a real physical role where we need athleticism. We haven't had that at all. I don't know how many times I said athleticism in this last 2 minutes, but I did think that against QPR. We were bullied physically against QPR, and that's not something we've seen a lot with this Leeds team.
Which is disgraceful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I thought to an extent, Middlesbrough, managed to get us physically as well. That's been a bit of a concern to me. It's the fact that, yes, at times this season we've had spells where we've not been able to create against low blocks, but the fact we conceded goals bothers me.
But post international break, midfield battles, whoever's been in there, we've been bullied. Watford, we were bullied. Hull, we were bullied. Coventry, we were bullied. People forget about that whole game, how they were just completely dominant in that midfield.
I think as a team, we're not just in midfield. I think the last 2 games across the pitch, we're being bullied. We've conceded 2 goals from set pieces. It's ridiculous. You can't do that. That can't happen. And
Oscar, let me just get into it.
Scored 3 or 4 from set pieces last night.
No, you're right, mate. CR81 sent in a super sticker. Shout out to you, mate. Phil says, always the same with Leeds. We're talking about next season in the Prem a couple of months back when still a lot of football to be played. Forgetting Leeds do bottle it.
Well, it's more that we make a content creation show. We have to talk about a bunch of stuff, and one of them is potential contingencies. But I get the point.
Yeah, and in all fairness, we don't dispel superstition. I know Gabe does, but with me, it just rides in my veins that I've seen Leeds bottle things 4 or 5 times in my life, and that's why I can't just be. I would call it delusional, but other people would call it completely positive and just going with the team, whatever the weather. I think it is a little bit delusional, to be honest. And it's just literally because of the scars that Leeds United have left me. And I did think, lads, that this team were mentally a little bit different. I've said this on the video this morning when we went 9 games. 9 games on the on winning run, and we'd not been beaten in 14, and we'd seen some quite brilliant things, as in records were there to be broken. We'd gone down to Millwall and battered them. We've always been horrendous down at Millwall, and you did look at it and you thought, you know what, maybe this team are mentally a little bit different. But post international break, 8 points out of 21 there from where we were to where we are now. It literally, people don't like the word, and the reason people don't like the word is because the word has been associated with Leeds for many seasons. They've completely bottled it right
I do think, as much as we, I agree with what Gabe's saying in terms of, I don't think we're walking onto the pitch and thinking about, 2006, we lost it against Watford in Cardiff. I don't think that's the case. But sometimes heritage and history does matter in certain scenarios.
I agree.
These players don't have that institutional memory. I can guarantee Crescencio Somerville isn't like, oh well, I got to avoid what happened in 20.
Gabe, for me, it's the pressure of a Joel Perot playing for a bigger club in Leeds United than Swansea. It's the pressure.
Yeah, no, I agree with that part.
Pressure though, Gabe. In terms of Norwich, it's a different scenario. In terms of Norwich, if Norwich don't get promoted, listen, the Norwich fans.
Yeah, but
aren't
those are
happy
two
about
different
that.
things, Oscar. You're talking about players who aren't accustomed to pressure versus players that somehow have like an institutional spooky memory of stuff that happened in the early 2000s or 2018 or whatever the case may be. I just don't think it works that way. I don't think that. I agree that playing for Leeds United is a heavy badge. That there's no, and that's not superstition. That's a fact. I just don't agree that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is not.
Well, look at certain things. In terms of Charlie Creswell, say, for example, Charlie Creswell's first game of the season was Cardiff in the 2-2. He came on at 2-0 down in that game. And listen, I'm not saying we came back into that game just because of Charlie Creswell, but he definitely played a part in it. In terms of Cardiff were trying to go long against us and they had a lot of success in that first half of that game against us. Creswell came on, winning his 50-50s, physically gave us something a bit different. Suddenly we scored from a set piece. Lots of different things happening in the game. Creswell gave us that physical edge kind of thing. And I think that is something we've kind of missed in the last 2 or 3 games, is that physicality in the team. Not just Creswell, I'm talking about across the team. That's what I think fundamentally we need more than anything. Because I think no matter what we say about tactically and systems and things like that, at this stage of the season where you've got nerves, you've got the other team desperately needing to win, no game's going to be perfect. It's not going to play out in a perfect way like it would do in October and November. At this stage of the season, it's just about winning. It's just about those little margins going for you. Yeah, we said about Meslier in terms of we conceded, was it, I can't remember the stats, was it 2.2 XG and we conceded 7 goals from that? Am I right in saying something
like
like
that?
Yeah.
I think it was less than 2 XG. Yeah. I thought it was like 1.87, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
But the margins are, say if we only conceded 2 across the last 2 games, we could have won both games. You know what I mean? It's just those margins. Yeah. I'm not saying we should have got anything last night. I'm just saying that at this stage of the season, things like that really do start to matter in terms of when
that's also, but that's also something that I would say. When you look at Illan Meslier, like I do think his position on the pitch is something really that Daniel Farke can't do anything about. Like he can rotate across a lot of the pitch. 10 players can really be rotated. But when you look at it, and this is why the goalkeeper is such a hugely important position, Farke can't do anything about that. Farke can't do anything about us having a French hologram in there, us having a polo mint in there, just a big hole through him. Like
10 yards off his line for no reason at all.
And quite right. Farke cannot do anything about that. So as much as we can come on here and say this, that, and the other, goals prevented being at nearly -4, and Hermansen is +7. This guy's save percentage is 68%, which is 14th in the division. Yeah,
it was 72 a couple of weeks ago. By the way. After a purple patch.
And do you know what, Gabe? A lot of it has been post-international break when we've not had a lot of the ball. There's been Watford, there's been Sunderland in large periods, there's been Coventry, there's been games in and around, obviously last night, where teams have had a lot more of the ball, and thus that means that they're able to create a few more chances. And that's the big thing right now. And Illan Meslier is a massive part of this, Oscar. He's a massive part of this. And when he's facing any form of shot or any set piece or any situation where we need to heavily rely on him, he's absolutely woeful. And that point cannot be undervalued, really, because the goalkeeper is so important in these, little incremental values. We keep talking about set pieces, Charlie Creswell coming in and maybe nodding as a goal in or whatever. Well, the lad at the back also needs to keep you in games, and he doesn't do it enough. When was the last time? I know it sounds daft, but I was having a look at it today. Has he ever saved a penalty for Leeds United?
Connor, more than that, he's never been named man of the match this season.
Well,
there's at least one match every season with every team where their goalkeeper saves the game for them, and they're called man of the match. He's not gotten one.
But does it also come back to what we were saying at the start of the season, Gabe, when we were talking? Obviously, Oscar came on a little bit later about us getting Carl Darlow in and actually having a number 2 who pushes that number 1. The number 2 is not even in the conversation anymore. Right. It's Illan Meslier, and that's it. And that was what it was in the Premier League. It's Illan Meslier. That's it.
Yep. No, it concerns me. Yeah, it concerns me. Darlow's performances in the Cup didn't put any pressure on. And I did say at the time that could hurt us later in the season in terms of not having that. I'm not saying Meslier only performs when he has pressure on him. I'm not saying that at all. But I think subconsciously, when you've got someone, if you see, I think what I'll go back to is say, I think the last time we kind of had any kind of competition in terms of our goalkeepers was probably the Monk season with Rob Green and Silvestri.
Well, just
I think
imagine having a second option when the first option is doing
but
poorly.
Rob Green was the far better goalkeeper, but Silvestri did put in some really, really good performances in the cup kind of thing. And I just think subconsciously, after that, Rob Green's form went through the window, went through the roof. Really, he kept us in a lot of games at that point in the season. And I think that's the last time where we've had a real stable goalkeeping situation. It's not just down to one goalkeeper; it's just across the board. There's not enough pressure, I don't think, from the backup goalkeepers on Meslier. There's no conversation of dropping Meslier because there's not enough pressure on him.
Right.
It's not.
We're stuck with a dire goalkeeper. You're right.
They're not putting enough pressure on him, really. I think, to be fair, Clarkson did okay when he went into the team, but again, he didn't have anything to do because we were in our best spell of the season at that point. But yeah, the point I'd go back to is where I said about the history and heritage. I think it does matter in some ways. In terms of Leeds United, look at Real Madrid. Okay, Real Madrid in the Champions League had no right to win that game a few weeks ago against Man City, but they have that inner belief where they've done it so many. Listen, I know it's different players and things like that, but they have that inner belief as a club so many times that they can get through games and find ways to win. They've done it so many times in the Champions League. Liverpool, going the other way in the Premier League, have struggled to get over the line and win Premier League titles. You're kind of seeing that in the last couple of weeks as well. Leeds United, to be fair, if you look at 2017, the playoffs, 2019 promotion, last season, this season, we kind of have had a really, really, really bad 8 or 9 games in those seasons. 2020, 2022, the difference was Pablo stepped up in massive moments to get us over the line. Rafinha stepped up in massive moments in 2022.
Yeah, difference was players said, "Hey, this history doesn't matter, and I'm going to step up and play."
We need someone to do that. That's where I want.
Do you know who else who stepped up? Do you know who else who stepped up? Joe Gelhardt.
Yeah, Joe Gelhardt. It doesn't just have to be one player. Of course, Ben White in the 2020 season was immense as well. It doesn't just have to be one player.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think what I'm saying is I know this is all very interesting for a good conversation and stuff. What I'm saying is that if, as a player, you're going to get caught into the vortex of a historical precedent that has nothing to do with you as an individual, then go do one. Like why even play? Like, oh well, we don't win a lot of games at Loftus Road, so as a player, I'm gonna just accept that my performance can be poor today. Like, it's just.
I'm not.
You're not saying that, Oscar, but I'm just saying that I just don't. That's why I don't. No, I know you're not saying it. That's why I just don't find it. I don't find these arguments compelling in any way, shape, or form because it's just to what you said. Pascal Struijk, I almost said Struijk, thanks to you, steps up, and Rafinha steps up. These players step up. Yeah, players that decide that I don't care about the history and precedents. I'm going to take this game by the scruff of the neck. And we don't have those players doing that.
That's what I'm saying. We need. It does matter in terms of our history when you haven't got players stepping up and saying, right, this isn't what Leeds United do anymore. We don't bottle it in these moments. That's what Pablo did. That's what Rafinha did. And that's why those two players will be considered by probably everyone in this chat. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, guys. We'll consider they're the two best players we've had in the last sort of 10, 15 years. It's probably those two because they stepped up in the fundamental moments. When the lights were bright, they stepped up. Crescencio Somerville, to be fair, against Middlesbrough, stepped up big time. And that's the difference. We would not have won that game on Monday without Crescencio Somerville on the pitch. We wouldn't have won the game. You have to look at the other games as well and think, right.
Or a dodgy linesman.
Or a dodgy linesman, of course. Yeah. It's about time we had the decision go for us, to be fair. But that's the point I'm making. We won that game, and that's probably our only win, I think, since Hull. For that reason, the players we needed to step up, did step up in those big, big moments. And it's not just Crescencio Somerville. Say Joe Rodon, for example. I think Joe Rodon, I still think he's the best centre-back in the league, to be honest. I really do still believe that. We need the clean sheets again. We need the performances from the back four. We need the midfield again. Fundamentally, we need 2 or 3 players to really start stepping up and saying, no, this isn't what Leeds United do anymore. We do win the playoffs. We don't just go into the playoffs and think, right, the last 10 years, the last 10 times we've been in the playoffs, we've always lost. We have to change the mentality. And sometimes you need individuals and the manager to change that. So it does matter.
Should we move on, Oscar?
Yeah, it does. I'm going like, that Giorgio Chiellini thing where he goes, the history of the Tottenham kind of thing. That's what I'm going towards at this moment.
Well, I've not asked people to like the video. So, Gabe, do you want to do a little a little shout out for likes for me?
Sure. Guys, remember to like and subscribe. And if you want more content just like this, become a Patreon member. If you want, become a member of the channel. Any lines you want me to rattle off?
You did it last night, and I loved it.
Do you want me to do anything really American? What would you like to be said in ultra American?
I think that was quite ultra.
No, I can make it worse.
That was very American. Not gonna lie.
I think
you realize give you what Jesse Marsh would say in a situation like this. Will that make us feel better?
I don't think so. Somewhat.
Oddly, I don't think that would make us feel any better.
Right, we'll sign off. It's really hard because I always try sign these things off with a bit of a positive, but
we did have a member ask us for one positive in the beginning. We didn't do it. Should we try to give one positive? Really work hard to make it genuine.
So my positive is we will never have to watch that game.
I said that the other day. You've stolen my positive.
I have. Yeah.
Come on,
Gabe. Think of another one.
Let me see. My positive is that there is, as long as I can, God, I don't even know how to frame this. I would say that I would be a little bit more optimistic if we see Mateo Joseph start. And there's at least a remote possibility that happens given how Pirro played and Bamford being banged up. But it's, I'm trying.
Somehow we still have even though it's going to be marginal, we still have the marginal percentage that Leeds can get promoted. We're not 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. We are still in the mix. Oscar, got anything else to add to that?
Well, what I'd say is it shouldn't be marginal because if you look at the playoffs, okay.
Oh, Hull have scored. There we go. That's a positive.
Well, there we go. Something
got nothing to do with us.
We might be leaving something. I was about to say Hull might score as a positive, but
Yeah.
Hull might score again. But the thing I'd look at is if it is playoffs, I'm not going to get too carried away of Hull scoring a goal kind of thing.
No, I'm not at all.
I've seen this story too many times of Ipswich, too many times kind of thing.
A point's fine for Ipswich.
Connor, you're distracting him from his positive here.
Sorry.
Right. Look at the teams in the playoffs. Southampton have lost 3 on the bounce. West Brom might not even make the playoffs at this rate. Norwich are not great. They're all right,
Norwich have played really well.
If we can get ourselves sorted out, I'm not saying back to the team we were in January because that's unrealistic, getting all that momentum back. But if we can get ourselves into some kind of cohesive structure, we should win the playoffs. There, I've said it. We should still win the playoffs. We should still go into the playoffs and believe. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but we should still be able to win the playoffs.
Can you do a Mike Bassett impression? Like, can you do the voice?
I've never known a more obsessed.
I can't do it without swearing.
Mike
I can't do Mike Bassett.
But you know that part was like, you're asking me to predict the future. That's what it reminded me of. I was just like, I can't predict the future.
Shazza says, did you see they were at Thorpe Arch today? I didn't, Shazza, but they should have been there all night, mate. Absolute joke. Yeah, keep getting the likes in, everybody. Really appreciate it. Just ranks means the debrief rank higher on.
Would you not agree, lads? We should go into the playoffs thinking we should be able to win them.
Yeah, I mean,
on paper, we would be the best team in the playoffs. Yes.
Yeah. No. Look. Yes. Yeah. But yeah. You know. Yeah. But we. Yes. Yeah. I'm just not gonna. I'm gonna leave it.
When he starts making squealing noises.
Yeah. When I know what to say, but I feel like I shouldn't say it, so I'm not gonna say it right now. But yeah, as Finn says, have faith. Even though we'll just be slapped up by QPR 4-0 in a must-win game. But anyway, let's leave it like that. Listen, guys, we do go into the playoffs, obviously, and you never know. Ipswich might lose and then lose to Coventry.
Do you know how faith is defined, Connor, in the whole?
Actually believe in it. Actually believe in it, maybe.
No. Being sure of your hopes and certain of what you can't see. So inherently, we would have to self-delude to be faithful after what we just saw.
Yeah, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll be back here very soon. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we will see you in a bit. And yeah, let's be hoping something gets a little bit better on the other side for us. Cheers.